No gym on Earth can build the body an ancient human lived in every single day. It came from 5 simple things they did without ever once calling it a workout, and modern training cannot copy a single one. Somewhere between 40,000 and 120,000 years ago, an ordinary human walked around on legs stronger than a world-class distance runners. In 2013, anthropologist Colin Shaw and his colleague Jay Stock scanned the shin bones of ancient humans and Neanderthals from that era and compared them to modern cross-country runners who train 100 miles a week. The ancient shins were more reinforced, built to take more load than the legs of someone who runs almost every single day of their life. And that human never touched a barbell or a treadmill. Here are all 5. Carry a heavy load on your head with a strap across your forehead year after year, and it can wear a permanent groove straight into your skull. Jeffrey Malloy and Norman Hegland documented exactly that in Kenyan women who still carry the traditional way, in a study published in the journal Nature in 1986. For ancient humans, carrying like this was ordinary. They moved everything they owned on their own bodies: food, water, firewood, and their children, sometimes for miles at a time. The same researchers found Luo women balancing loads equal to 70% of their own body weight on top of their heads. A 130-pound woman hauling 90 pounds on foot. The strangest part came from the lab. These women could carry a load equal to a fifth of their body weight and burn no extra energy doing it. Their bodies had turned carrying into something almost free. That kind of weight, balanced through the neck, the spine, the core, and the legs for hours a day across a lifetime, builds a body no cable machine will ever touch. The second one is digging. For most of human history, a huge share of the daily calories came from underground. Roots and tubers, buried deep in soil baked hard by the sun, pulled out with nothing but a sharpened stick and a lot of force. Anthropologists Kristen Hawkes, James O'Connell, and Nicholas Blurton Jones spent years living with the Hadza of Tanzania, one of the last hunting and gathering peoples on Earth. They tracked exactly who did the hardest digging, and the answer was the grandmothers. Women past childbearing age worked the longest hours and went after the deepest, most stubborn tubers, the ones buried far enough down that pulling them free was a full-body fight against the ground. Picture a grandmother, crouched low, driving a stick into rock-hard earth over and over, leveraging out roots that a modern adult would give up on in minutes. Hours of it, every day. That is a back, a grip, and a set of shoulders forged by decades of the exact movement a trainer would charge you to learn today. The third one is climbing, and this one carried a real chance of dying. The most prized food in many ancient diets was honey, and the best honey sat inside hives packed into the trunks of enormous trees guarded by stinging bees. Anthropologists Frank Marlowe and Brian Wood documented how Hadza men reach it. They free-climb baobab trees, some of them 50 feet tall, hammering wooden pegs into the bark as they go and hauling themselves up peg by peg with a swarm of angry bees waiting at the top. Honey made up around 15% of everything they ate in a year, so climbing 50 feet into a bee-filled tree was just how they did their grocery shopping. The researchers also recorded the cost. Falling out of those trees was one of the leading causes of injury and death for Hadza men. Every trip up was grip strength, pulling power, and total body control, done at a height where a slip was fatal. No climbing gym gives you that, because no climbing gym is allowed to. The fourth one is throwing, and it is the reason we became hunters at all. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, can barely throw. A grown chimp throws slower and wilder than a human child. Somewhere in our past, that changed completely. In 2013, Neil Roach and Daniel Lieberman at Harvard published a study in Nature on how the human throw actually works. The shoulder loads up like a slingshot. As the arm cocks back, the tendons and ligaments across the shoulders stretch and store energy, then fire it all forward at once. It produces the single fastest motion the human body is capable of. In a trained thrower, the upper arm rotates at up to 9,000 degrees per second. That machinery first shows up around 2 million years ago in Homo erectus. Ancient humans threw spears and rocks to hunt, over and over for a lifetime. Every throw was a coordinated snap of the legs, the hips, the core, and the shoulder in one explosive chain. Athletes trained for years to build that. Ancient hunters built it by eating. The fifth one is the one that sounds like a trick, and it is the way they rested. Ancient humans had no chairs and no couches, so when they stopped moving, they dropped into a deep squat or a kneel and stayed there. In 2020, David Reichlen and his team published a study in the journal PNAS comparing how the Hadza rest against how people in offices rest. The Hadza sat idle for about as many hours a day as an office worker does. The difference was the shape of the rest. Sitting in a chair switches your muscles almost entirely off. A resting squat keeps the legs, the hips, and the core gently firing the entire time to hold you there. So even their downtime was low-level training. Hours of it, every day, on top of everything else. Their bodies were never fully switched off, which is exactly why the researchers who study them keep finding almost none of the heart and metabolic disease that fills modern clinics. Rest, for them, was just a quieter kind of work. Now look at your own day. You sit to eat, sit to work, sit through the commute, then sit down to relax. On a good day, you break that up with 45 minutes at the gym, isolating one muscle at a time on a padded machine. Then, you go back to sitting. Ancient humans had it inverted. Movement was the background of the entire day, and stillness was the rare exception. Every task was a whole-body effort, and even their rest asked something of them. That is why bodies from 100,000 years ago outbuild yours without a single rep counted, without a single gym membership, without a single word for the thing we call a workout. The strongest program ever run on the human body was just a normal Tuesday. That's all for today. Subscribe if you want to learn more about your own history.